Hello and welcome to another standard video. Today we're checking out this white, blue and black or Esper colored graveyard deck built around Erase the Past, suggested by my supporters on Patreon. This 4-mana sorcery from Foundations returns all creature cards with mana value 2 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield. And this deck aims to win the game the very same turn where we cast Erase the Past, thanks to some of our life gain and drain synergies. We're playing the full set of Hinterland Sanctifier, also from Foundations, a 1/2 saying whenever another creature we control enters, we gain 1 life. We also have 2 copies of the Sadistic Pilgrim, a 2/2 with Death Touch. Whenever another creature enters, we also gain 1 life, and whenever another creature we control dies, each opponent loses 1. And then we try to combine those with Starscape Cleric, a 2-mana 2/1 flyer, cannot block, can also be cast with Offspring, in which case we'll get an additional 1/1 token version of it. And then whenever we gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. So if we can fill our graveyard and then get back multiple Starscape Clerics or Sanctifiers at the same time, we'll get so many life gain and drain triggers where we can just end the game on the spot. So that's our game plan. So we'll be filling the graveyard starting on turn 1 already with Gnawing Vermin, which can mill for 2. When it dies can give -1/-1, so we can also just chum block and buy ourselves a bit of time. And then a Snarling Gorehound is a great way to fill the graveyard by surveilling whenever a creature with power 2 or less enters, and that can also maybe help keep Erase the Past on the top of our deck so we can eventually find it. And then at 2 mana, we can mill ourselves with the Archaeologist. We don't have many non-creature spells that it can find, but the ones we're running are all quite impactful, since we have our 4 Erase the Past, as well as 4 Founding the Third Path, which is a read-ahead saga, so we can start from any chapter. We can start from chapter 1 if we want to maybe delay the final chapter, or if we have one of our adventure creatures in hand, either the Prankster or the Somnophage. We can use their adventures for free if we cast our Founding starting chapter 1. Then on chapter 2 we get to mill 4 cards, and finally we get to exile an instant or sorcery from our graveyard, copy it, and cast the copy. Now keep in mind this is not optional, so if we have Erased the Past we will be forced to exile it from our graveyard, and then if we don't already have 4 mana to cast it, it will go to waste. So that's why sometimes we want to wait on casting Founding until turn 3. That way by the time it gets to chapter 3 we'll actually have the mana to cast Erase the Past out of our graveyard. And then the Prankster's Adventure is another way of milling 4, finding an instant, sorcery or fairy from among them to put in hand. The rest ends up in the graveyard, and then the creature we can still potentially get back out of the graveyard with Erase the Past, just to increase the amount of triggers we get from Sanctifier and Starscape Cleric. And then the Somnophage gives us another way to mill 4 with the Adventure, and it's also an alternate win condition in case we don't get there with Erase the Past. This will also grow with the number of creatures in each graveyard, so the more we mill, the bigger the Somnophage gets. And then at the mana base, only running 22 lands, could potentially try 24, but with the Surveil from Gorehound we can usually hit our land drops, and we don't really want to draw more than 4 lands, otherwise we risk flooding out, and that way we also have a higher density of creatures if we start milling ourselves, so the Erase the Pasts are actually more impactful. And then we're not running the Surveil lands that enter tapped, even though Surveiling would be quite synergistic, instead going for the Fast Land plus Pain Land combination, so we can actually curve out and cast our 1-drops on turn 1. But you could potentially build the mana base to be a bit slower and have the Surveil lands plus Verge lands as a combination that's pretty good too. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw, and it's got potential. We already have our Erase the Past, just need a second white source, although sadly the rest will take away our only non-creature spell, I guess, besides Founding. So the rest doesn't have a very high hit rate, but the cards it can take are all pretty impactful. I'll start with a Gorehound. Turn 2 can either Somnophage or Prankster. I'll get in for 1. Now Pilgrim's an option too. We'll get to Surveil with the Gorehound. Opponent's gonna take it out right away. So now the advantage of Pilgrim is just we put a 2/2 creature on the battlefield. Sure, I guess that's good enough. Any creature that dies without getting exiled, we can still hope to return at some point. Opponent's got another Nowhere to Run. That's fine. They are not progressing their own game plan. And then now Vermin And I'm probably going for Prankster. Since now I've got the double whites, if I were to find another Erase the Past, we can cast it. Opponent's got the Bloodletter in the meantime, so that's scary. Although at least we can chump block a Slasher on the ground pretty easily. Prankster did not find anything useful. And then now I'm probably on mill myself with Somnophage and play it. Another Raise the Past gone. So we've got a couple good top decks. Of course, Raise the Past, Founding would be great. Don't have any great attacks. But yeah, Somnophage is large, so that's also a win condition. Prankster can block the Bloodletter, and then we can have a look at the graveyard. But yeah, Raise the Past is looking good. Now Go for the Throat takes out our Somnophage, and can go Gorehound into Prankster. Could leave Vermin back to maybe block a Mishra's Foundry. Yeah, maybe that makes more sense. And don't need another Vermin. Okay, we're on empty. Opponent's got a Sheoldred's Edict now. So we'll sack the Vermin. Even though it's a better blocker for Mishra's Foundry. Still would rather keep the Gorehound to surveil into some action. And now we get to block. Slasher, alright, that's now a problem. Somnophage is going to keep milling myself. And then I could attack with a Gorehound. So what's the plan now? I can maybe chump the Slasher and then attack back with a Somnophage. Prankster gets to hit for one. So it is possible I actually want to block with a Gorehound on Slasher as opposed to trading Somnophage and the opponent getting the Slasher back after a couple turns. Alright, they found another Go for the Throat, sadly. So that puts us in an awkward spot. So a Slasher is a must block. And then Prankster at least gets to survive, but I need to top deck. Prankster could maybe find a Raise the Past. And we did. Okay, so now I just need to survive one more turn. We have 2 blockers, so it should be feasible. Just gotta dodge another discard spell off the top. Definitely blocking. We'll get the Prankster back anyway. And our opponent's got a second Slasher, so yeah. Don't have time to deploy a Cleric first, so time to raise. And with double Cleric, double Sanctifier, that should be more than enough, and our opponent explodes. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a triple Sanctifier opener, sadly no blue mana. Once we find blue mana, Archaeologist and Founding are excellent ways to find or Erase the Past, and with triple Sanctifier we should be able to buy ourselves some time, so I actually don't hate keeping. Facing turn 1 plains. At least we already have double whites for a potential Raise the Past and a Carrot Cake, so it looks like the token control deck, which means we might face Sunfall, which is quite good against our deck. Found Raise the Past, that's promising. Well, we're going all out here. If we find Starscape Cleric, that's going to be a significant threat as well. But yeah, we just need to start filling the graveyard and hope to dodge Sunfall. So, play Vermin, attack if they want to double block a Sanctifier. That works for me, because we actively want it in the graveyard where it cannot get exiled. Of course, milled 2 blue sources. Virtue makes a knight, so they can ambush a Sanctifier, but again, happy that they get destroyed instead of exiled. Knight attacks, reconsiders, could just trade for a Vermin. And then they could sacrifice the knight with Fountain Port. Still fine by me. Alright, more blue cards that I cannot cast. So, game's not going according to plan. But once we find blue mana, I can Founding, play Prankster for free, so we'll have milled quite a few cards in one go. And we're still at 24, so we have time. Alright, blue mana. Even though it's tapped, I'll still take. And now that our opponent's on Overlord, I feel like they're less likely to Sunfall me, so I'm fine just sitting back with the Sanctifiers. Virtue will grow their team. Alright, so stick to the plan. Founding, use Prankster. And then I could cast Somnophage if I really wanted to. Could also, I guess, adventure Somnophage and then cast it. Maybe that makes more sense, since we already have Erase the Past in hand. So we're not super picky. Alright. Next turn mill 4 more, so if we mill the right cards, Erase the Past could already be lethal. Opponent exile Somnophage, don't mind. And attacks. How do I feel about double blocking their rabbit? I kind of like it. Might incentivize them to use instant speed removal on Sanctifier. Fountain Port makes a fish, so it also picks up a counter. Mill 4, can we mill Cleric? We do. Alright, let's do some math here. Opponent's pretty much tapped out. With 3 life gain effects, yeah, this should be enough. So there's over 20 life gain triggers on the stack, so plenty of damage to spare. So yeah, it took us a while to find the blue mana, but once we did, the deck was able to combo pretty quickly. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Hand is missing Erase the Past or way to find it. But we've got good life gain, plus Cleric, so that's kind of a win condition in and of itself. And then double Somnophage, both a way to mill as well as a win condition. So I'll give it a try. Opponent blue-white. Now we can start with Gorehound. I think the Surveil's more important than the life gain initially. Making sure we hit our land drops and eventually find Erase the Past. And can hit for 1, play Pilgrim. And then next turn I'll be able to combine Sanctifier with Cleric perhaps. And Seachrome Coast I can still keep, since we'll need land 4. Right, don't mind removal that destroys my creatures, since we'll eventually get them back. Cavern names Avatar, so for one of the Overlords, the blue one, draw 2 and discard. One card I'm terrified of in this matchup is Sunfall, exiling my team. So then we need to make sure we can actually win the game the same turn we Erase the Past, pretty much. So it does look like a multicolored domain deck after all. Sanctifier can go. Good to have in the graveyard. And then I'll still play the Cleric, since that applies a good amount of pressure. And Courtyard can now go. Alright, so all we're missing is a Raise the Past, pretty much. Our graveyard is starting to fill up nicely. Opponent's got Green Overlord now. So they can cast a 1-mana Leyline Binding, exiling something. Which is what they're looking at right now. Probably going for Cleric, which I would have liked to have in my graveyard. Alright, so 2 creatures in graveyard total. So right now if I play Somnophage as a creature, it would trigger Gorehound. But it's gonna be better to just mill 4. Could also go digging with a map token. So yeah, we've got some options. I think it's just mill with Somnophage twice. Alright, milled 3 creatures at least. Could also cast it as a threat, which might already force them to cast a sweeper if they have it. Sure. And then next turn I can mill again, cast a Somnophage and go exploring. And yeah, there's a Sunfall. So they did get some good creatures with it, but could have been worse. Mill for 4. Cast Somnophage. And I think just explore instead of playing Gorehound when we don't get to surveil. And then Cleric would be decent to have in the graveyard. Assuming we eventually Raise the Past. Would be a way to trigger Gorehound twice if we cast it with Offspring, but we don't have 6 mana yet. So I'll just bin it. And then we're getting close to where Founding can immediately go to Chapter 3 to get back a Raise the Past. Assuming we mill 1 first. So that we don't expose the Founding to another Leyline Binding, for instance. Opponent's got another Overlord. This might be a build with Zur Eternal Schemer, turning the Overlords into creatures with the ability. Alright, there's the blue Overlord now on the battlefield. So Somnophage can attack. And then we're looking at Gorehound into Pilgrim to surveil, which is more important than gaining a life. Alright, opponent destroys Somnophage, that's fine. Another Gorehound can go. And let's go exploring. And there's Founding. So yeah, if I cast it, I can start from Chapter 2 and then hope to mill a Raise the Past. I think that's still better than just putting it in the graveyard here. Because it's similar to drawing 4 towards specifically Raise the Past. Although it does give them the chance to destroy my enchantment with another Get Lost or exile it with a Binding. And we're definitely running out of time. The Overlords are starting to enter the battlefield, and there's Zur. So yeah, giving a lifelink also quite relevant. So this is our last shot at comboing off, pretty much. So need to mill a Raise the Past or top deck one. Alright, we did. But now our opponent might be able to gain enough life where we can't actually combo kill. So we'll pass it back and hope Founding sticks around. Zur animates the white Overlord. So if we block 2... yeah, it's gonna be close. Because it can also animate Leyline Binding. So that might just be a little bit too much damage coming our way. And yeah, especially now with another leyline binding, it's over. GG's. Yeah, just needed to find the founding a turn sooner. And then we might have been able to combo off. Although with only one cleric, maybe not quite. Either way. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand's maybe a little clunky without any 1-drops, but it's certainly keepable. Got 2 white sources, Raise the Past, and a bunch of ways to fill the graveyard. So, hoping our opponent doesn't make us discard and doesn't exile our stuff either. Black-white so far. And looks like an Esper deck might be a Reanimator. Maybe go for Prankster end of turn. Opponent stuck on 2 lanes. And we milled a bunch of creatures and find another Prankster. So this turn I'm kind of liking just Prankster again. Don't want to play creatures into their mana when they can easily remove them, although then again, if they destroy my creatures without exiling them, we'll eventually get them back. Opponent discarding Atraxa to hand size could be a good thing for them if they can bring it back soon. Now it's time for Archaeologist, since Raise the Past is not too exciting. Mills 3 lanes. And then I probably play a tap land so that next turn I can play Cleric with Offspring, which is maybe a bit more threatening. Alright, Founding. Can mill for 4, and then next turn we're just looking to hardcast Raise the Past. I think I'm still better off going for Cleric. Then our opponents might be able to reanimate Atraxa. And then I probably need to mill myself a little bit more before I Raise the Past, since we're missing life gain enablers. But getting the Cleric in play might still be a little bit better. Could also cast it without Offspring, just to get Founding going, so we can already Raise the Past next turn. Also reasonable. Sure. Milled the Pilgrim, which will help. And then play Cleric, pass a turn. So we can start doing some math. We've got 3, 4, 5 creatures. We'll have double Cleric with Pilgrim. Opponent destroys Cleric, that's not a problem. In fact, that might benefit us. So yeah, this Raise the Past should be close to lethal. And Vermin will help out even more. Alright, so get in for 1. And Raise the Past. Can keep only 1 Pilgrim, but we'll still get all these triggers. Find another Raise the Past. Just have to be careful now that our opponent doesn't play a Jace out of nowhere to mill us for 15 and win the game. But I don't think our opponent's getting another turn here. And there we have it. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand is fine, I think. With double Archaeologist, we get to dig pretty deep for Erase the Past. Our mana's good. Looks like Sanctifier is going to eat a cut down, which is not always a bad thing, because now it's in the graveyard where it's maybe ready to combine with Cleric to win the game. Bandit's Talent makes me discard. I think I need to keep both Archaeologists to try and find Erase the Past, and then hope they don't have a targeted discard spell to take it away. And don't want to get rid of 2 lands either. So just milling 3 creatures. And Liliana could start plussing, yeah. I think I still keep double Archaeologist for now. Already have double white. And then cast another one, hoping to hit something. Founding is a starting point. Go after Liliana.
Watch it.
And now Warlock makes us discard. So they'll be able to discard again with a Liliana. So now the question is, do I keep the land as something that lets me cast Erase the Past eventually? Could start by casting the Founding. With Chapter 1, just to kind of give myself some time to eventually find a 4th land in case we mill Erase the Past. So there's a lot to consider. Could also just keep another Archaeologist and take it from there. Although Liliana is eventually going to be a problem too. Yeah, I think I ditch Archaeologist. We'll see if Liliana pluses, but I assume it does. Yep. And then... yeah, I would basically need to draw a land the turn after I cast Founding, while also milling a Erase the Past. Don't know if those odds are really my favor, but we found the land. So now all I need to do is mill Erase the Past, and then next turn I'll be able to cast it. Didn't quite get there, but at least fill the graveyard some more. And now we're in a position to top deck Erase the Past at any point to pretty much win the game. Right, Shieldred is fine.
Off you go.
Somnophage is quite large. So we'll just mill ourselves some more. Mill the Erase the Past, so now if I top deck Founding, that can also set up our combo. And we should have another turn or two to top deck.
Sorry, I'm not interested. Haven't you ever heard of personal
Somnophage holding back Shieldreds. And there's Erase the Past, perfect. So may as well attack first. Somnophage is going to shrink down. Opponent does not have any creatures in graveyard yet, now they do. So now the Somnophages will stay in play as 1/1s, as opposed to just dying right away. And then this should be more than enough with a Cleric on the battlefield. And we've got a Founding to get back, Erase the Past a second time. We only have the one Cleric, but we do have double Sanctifier, so there's still plenty of triggers on the stack to close it out here. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand seems functional. Got a lot of ways to mill. And then we can maybe set up Founding to eventually get back a Raise the Past if we mill it. Facing a red aggro, so Vermin's a decent early roadblock. Already milled Raise the Past. Now we have to be careful, because if I cast Founding turn 2, even if I start from chapter 1, I won't have 4 mana by the time we get to chapter 3, so I won't be able to cast Raise the Past. So if I can maybe wait one more turn, that might be better. Opponent runs out another Swiss Spear, so they can enable Prowess. Vermin won't be able to trade for them. So, yeah, I mean, I could chump, just kind of forcing them to use it, since we've got more Vermins coming up. Just want to buy ourselves time. And if Vermin dies, Somnophage is also bigger. Alright, Sanctifier's not bad. So yeah, since we want to wait on Founding, I think we may as well go Sanctifier into Vermin. And then next turn I get to play the Somnophage's Adventure for free using Founding Third Path. So that works out a bit better. And Cleric is perfect. So yeah, we've got our win condition in the graveyard. Ooh, Screaming Nemesis, that's going to be a problem. So yeah, if our opponents can deal damage to it, it's basically game over, since then our life gain combo is no longer going to work. So yeah, if our opponent's got a burn spell left, they can fire it off on their own Nemesis next turn. And there goes our entire game plan, pretty much. So yeah, that's definitely a problem for our deck. Still gonna Founding. And then start from chapter 1. Mill for 4. And then we'll just pass. Alright, let's see if they can damage their own Nemesis. They play another one, alright, that's not too bad. Swiss Spears hang back. We are forced to take 6 since we can't afford to deal damage to the Nemesis. Mill for 4. Mill another Raise the Past, so next turn we can cast it. Although will we get a next turn? Archaeologist, we're hoping, finds another non-creature spell so it has 0 power and can actually block a Nemesis. And then making sure, I guess we don't have any other blue sources that aren't painful in case we pick up another Founding. But for now we can gain 1 at least. Milled double Cleric. Alright, so next turn, Raise the Past is certainly lethal, assuming our opponent doesn't trigger the Nemesis. But yeah, they're pointing at their own Nemesis, so that cannot be good for me. If they have a Lightning Strike left, I guess they would also just be able to win the game. So let's say we block along these lines. We're also dead to a Monstrous Rage. Yeah, it feels almost impossible for them not to have 3 points of damage somehow. So maybe the play is block Nemesis. And then I can double block here, since we're going to be able to get those back anyway. And then double blocking Swiss Spear in case they are going for a Monstrous Rage after all. Right, Lightning Strike goes face, so yeah, had I taken the 6 damage we just die. Still dead to a 2 damage effect, since Archaeologist will deal them 1 damage. That's where, if it had 0 power, it would have worked out better for us. And they had the Burst Lightning as well, so yeah, no way we beat that hand. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. We have Sanctifier, Pilgrim, and Raise, just missing ways to fill the graveyard. But hopefully we'll find those soon. Is this turn 1 Duress? It is. That's always upsetting when our deck's not running too many non-creature spells to begin with. But Archaeologist can maybe find another Erase the Past or Founding, which can in turn get it back. So hit you for 1. I think I still go for Pilgrim first. So our opponent Golgari. And another Duress is going to miss now. And then we can play Sanctifier into Archaeologist. And that just milled some creatures. So best case scenario, we cast Archaeologist and find Founding, so I can immediately cast it, dodging another discard spell. And then we can potentially go off next turn. Did not quite get there. Alright, so we are on empty. Pilgrim can attack. But at least we should buy ourselves quite a bit of time here with all the life gain. Even though Cottage is a way for the opponent to exile creatures from our graveyard, it's a pretty slow way. But I guess if we're going for Founding to try and get back Erase the Past, they can maybe exile that one. Cleric now with Offspring is looking great. They might have to take out one of them. Make sure Offspring resolves before the life gain triggers, so the token also sees us gain life to deal damage. So yeah, opponent's at 4, and now an attack, even if they block with Cottage, could be lethal. So if they had removal for one of the clerics, they definitely should have fired it off. Opponent animates Cottage, maybe they also have a cut down so they can block plus cut down. But nope, opponent takes a lethal. And there we have it, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand doesn't really do anything, plus we're missing blue mana. So I'll take a mulligan, this is better. So we're looking at probably Gorehound on 1, turn 2 Founding, use Prankster. Yeah, eventually Sanctifier is important, but I feel like the Surveil from Gorehound is more desirable to help find Erase the Past to begin with. Sleight of Hand of Botanical Sanctum. So this might be the Tolarian Terror deck with Adimurk Crab as well. And of course up the Beanstalk. So they probably don't have many counter spells, which is good news. And actually think we want to Prankster first and wait another turn on Founding. Because if I Founding now, I wouldn't be able to exile Erase the Past from the graveyard and cast it. But I'll still be forced to get rid of it. So if we just wait one turn, we can avoid that. And now Bushwhack finds a land. Opponent will have lots of bounce spells, so those can maybe interfere. Okay, so hit you for 1. And then now we can Founding using Prankster. And then next turn we can start casting the Pranksters to trigger Gorehound. Still no Erase the Past, but double Cleric in graveyard already, plus a Sanctifier. Opponent's gonna bounce the Gorehounds just to pick up Beanstalk and draw. And replays it. Still only 3 instants and sorceries in the graveyard, so their big creatures don't have a very big discount yet. And there's Erase the Past, so let's see if we can just mill some more creatures here. Let's do some math. So we have 4, 5, 6 creatures. with double Cleric. Yeah, that's probably good enough. And then next turn I could technically raise the past again. And we'll mill some more with Archaeologists. And on the off chance that they do have some counter spells, it's just good to get the board presence. And yeah, I don't see blue-green really coming back from this position. Bounce a Cleric, that's fine. Bounce another one. And now they can start casting their creatures on the cheap. Tolarian Terror will draw with double Beanstalk. So they are trying. Do we want to raise the past again? Would only get back Gorehound, Sanctifier, Archaeologist, and Vermin. So yeah, without the Clerics, it's not going to win me the game here. What's the alternative? Opponent also fighting my flyer in the meantime. I mean, maybe it's still good enough. Because then we'll have double Sanctifier in play, and then casting a Cleric, especially with Offspring, will win me the game. And we get to surveil a bunch more. I have to be a little bit careful that I don't end up milling myself out. Can keep Raise the Past on top now. And no great attacks. But yeah, Cleric with Offspring, with double Sanctifier, should get us there. Unbound spells and Addy Merc Crab tapping down our creatures can only get them so far. I guess if they have more fight spells for Sanctifier, that's one approach. But then we can still maybe cast Cleric and Raise the Past again. Get to untap. So step 1, probably Gorehound. I guess no, we could have gone for Cleric first, and then with a Cleric in play, Gorehound would actually deal damage. That's alright. We're just setting up another Raise the Past, in case the game drags out. Opponent bouncing Sanctifier. So they are preventing a bit of the damage here. But we also have an attack step. Opponent's at 4. Addy Merc Crab will tap 2 creatures down, so opponent has a 1 blocker. And I still see plenty of attackers here. So should have just enough for lethal. But at this turn, if we play Cleric before Gorehound, we should maybe have a little bit of damage to spare. Alright, so we got to Raise the Past a few times today, and I like the fact that this deck doesn't care about removal for the most part, unless the removal happens to exile all our creatures. So against all those mono-black decks, this should line up quite favorably, since we can just lose a bunch of our creatures, and then fill the graveyard, and at some point win the game if we top deck Raise the Past, even through multiple discard effects. So that's great, can chum block slashers all day long. So yeah, the mono-black matchup seems decent. Against red aggro decks, as long as they don't have Screaming Nemesis, we can potentially gain enough life to stabilize and eventually combo kill. But Screaming Nemesis is a real problem, and if we want to add more interaction in the deck to answer it, then we're going to be diluting some of our graveyard synergies, so it's always very difficult to add more interaction to a deck like this, since we need to have lots of creatures for the deck to function. And that's also why this deck probably doesn't translate very well to best of 3, because it is very weak to graveyard hate. Our backup plans aren't gonna win us the game very often, and then of course counter spells on Raise the Past can also significantly significantly slows down, so there are quite a few problems to face when taking this into a best of 3 setting, but as a best of 1 deck you can sometimes just combo off and most opponents wouldn't be prepared for it. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.